Annyeong haseyo. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, especially a pleasure to be here with Mike Honda. And as you know, Mike Honda was the author of this legislation. I was his co-author, trying to get it through committee 10 years ago. And Judy Chu has always spoke out and supported this effort as well. And so today I think it is a time to reflect. A time to reflect also because we had a great victory before the Supreme Court of the United States, who refused to hear the attempts to remove the Glendale Peace statue that stands in commemoration of the comfort women and what they went through. And I will just quickly tell you that 10 years ago, when this bill came up, we did organize a hearing at that time to allow the grandmothers to speak, to have them tell us about their personal experiences. And that was so powerful before the Foreign Affairs Committee. And the arguments they made so persuasive that when the Korean American community, when you did this effort to get this bill up before the House of Representatives, it passed unanimously. And I do want to recognize Phyllis Kim and the Washington Coalition for Comfort Women Issues and the Korean American Forum of California and all the other organizations that have been engaged in this effort to make sure that justice is done. I also wanted to share with you that we had an ongoing effort as we brought grandmothers out to California. And in cities like Fullerton, my own city that passed a resolution, we had them testify there as well before the community. Our goal has been to educate across the United States so that the next generation of Americans really understand what happened during the occupation and then what happened during the Second World War. I would tell you that as a longtime friend of the Korean American community, I've been going for 20 years to Korea. I used to head the parliamentary exchange before I became chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. And I think that it was very important that this Congress continue to speak out on the injustice. And so, when the mayor of Osaka made those vile remarks suggesting that comfort women were volunteers, I immediately took to the House floor to denounce those hateful words, that hateful speech, in the most visible way possible. And when the government of Japan released a report questioning the Kono statement, I addressed that matter directly, sitting side by side with the Korean ambassador to the United States. Many of you may also know that I made a very personal visit to the Glendale Peace Memorial in order to say goodbye to a grandmother who passed away. And I made this visit on the same day that House Resolution 121 was introduced in the House of Representatives. And after my visit to the Peace Memorial, I carried the unified message of all Korean Americans and of the opinion of the Congress of the United States to Tokyo, and demanded that the government of Japan disavow the hurtful statements made about comfort women and World War II. So I would just make the observation that it is much harder to get tomorrow right if we get yesterday wrong. That's why on issues like Tokto Island, I've spoken out and explained that Tokto Island is Korean, and that it was taken during the occupation by Japan. But after the occupation was over, it is time for Japan to recognize the honest history of what happened. We're not going to get the future right if we get the past wrong, and that's why it's important we all speak out, and that's why I will continue to press for full accounting of the atrocities committed during the occupation, during the colonization, and then during the Second World War. And here's to our family members that were part of that struggle, in terms of defeating fascism, whether it was Imperial Japan or in Europe. My father served with General Patton in the Second World War and took photographs at Dachau when they liberated that concentration camp. And those photos are in the Museum of Tolerance today. I will share with you that this is a very personal thing to me. And I have talked to the families, and I commend all of you for your ongoing efforts. Thank you very much.
안녕하세요. Thank you very much for this opportunity and this wonderful get-together commemorating the 10th anniversary. And just wanted to acknowledge WCCW, the leadership, and they're all women. And I want to also recognize CASE, the Korean American for Civic Engagement, all the nonprofits and the community organizations across this country that were run by the Korean American communities. Very well organized nationally. And also want to thank my chief of staff at that time, and her name is Jennifer Vanderhyde. They think that Jennifer is my wife, but she's my chief of staff, and she's been with me for many, many years, so I don't blame people thinking that she's my wife, but she's here. She's the only blonde here, I think. There you are. Stand up. She's also as tall as us Asians, too. And but it was through her work, and the work with another young lady that came in from Peace Corps, born in South Korea, U.S. citizen, and was on our staff. Her name was Helen Chung Bordeaux, who also helped us. And so having staff that reflects the community, having members of the Korean community on staff is a big, big advantage, both in presence and in language. I also want to recognize the fact that when the Democratic Party took control of Congress, it was then when we were able to have our very first public congressional hearing led by Congressman Eni Falumavega from America Samoa. And he just recently passed away, so I just want us to remember his wonderful fight. And before him was Congressman Lane Evans of Illinois, who was a veteran of the Vietnam War. And so we had other people who took up the battle when California passed a resolution back in 1999, of which I was the author also. We had also exemplary professional staff like Mindy. Would you stand up, Mindy? And please recognize her, because with her expertise and constant work with us, with people like Phyllis Kim, Helen Ho, and Julie Lee, again, recognize that they're all women. And I think it's appropriate that our women of this country take hold of this issue and move it forward. The thing that I think we need to recognize in terms of politics is that unless the party, the dominant party, accepts the idea and supports it, it won't come before the public. And with Ed Royce on the other side, he constantly championed it as chairman of his committee. But it wasn't until we had Nancy Pelosi leading our congressional members that we were able to do that. And that's why I'm very happy that the chairman of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, Congresswoman Judy Chu, Dr. Judy Chu, is here to share some words also. But I want to thank her for being here representing the over 14 congressional members who are Asian Americans. And we have over, well, she'll tell you more about that, I guess. What I want to tell you is that in 2007, we did pass that resolution. But it didn't stop there. 9 other countries did the same thing, only because we were able to do this. And it has not stopped. Other countries have adopted the same resolution or the same sentiment. And we had made an effort that 3 harmonies who went to court in Japan, who dared to speak up and break their silence. Their breaking of the silence was a voice heard all around the world. But it was you that was the megaphone that amplified the story, that amplified the situation, that amplified the fact that Prime Minister Abe is unwilling to fulfill the obligations on behalf of his government. And I think that it was mentioned that the Japanese government tried to go to the Supreme Court, trying to bring Glendale to the Supreme Court. And if you read the lawsuit, you would have asked yourself, who wrote this? It was so badly written that no court should have even considered it. That's one thing, but the subject matter, that we as U.S. citizens want to do the kinds of things we want to do in this country, we have that right to make sure that we commemorate the kinds of things that happened overseas back in the 30s and the 40s to the end of World War II. Now we have to also understand that this fight goes beyond just getting an apology. It's another government that's supposed to be our partner that's trying to interfere on this soil, in our textbooks in this country, that they're trying to interfere with that, and that's unacceptable. So the good news of that is, you know that you have an impact on Prime Minister Abe's sensitivity and his conscience. So much that he is moving his government to do all these kinds of things at different levels in this country. So be aware and be vigilant and be prepared to push back. In Atlanta, they went full force against the community there, but the community there succeeded in establishing a memorial there. Worldwide, there's over 45 cities around this world who have established this kind of memorial. In this country alone, 10 cities have established their memorial, and more are to come. So we must lend them support and lend them our experiences so that they can be successful in their own cities. And in Japan, there's got to be at least 4 or 5 cities in Japan that came on board and said that we're right and Abe is wrong. So know that your work is producing fruit. Know that even though it's been 10 years, we have to remember that these victims have been suffering over almost 70 years. And so we need to also understand that the urgency that we have over this issue, over this apology that we want Abe to express and share with us, an unambiguous apology, an acceptance of historical responsibility that our grandmothers are dying. About a week ago, grandmother Kim Jung-ja had passed away. She was one of the 3 that came to testify. And we still have our active sister, Lee Young-so, who is carrying that battle on. But time is short, and we must not allow the leadership of the Japanese government to stall us any longer. The silver lining I see right now is that we have a new leadership in Korea, President Moon, who says he's going to review this past resolution or treaty between Japan and South Korea. That agreement is not worth the paper it's written on, because it does not talk to the issue of an apology. And so we must be always ready to be able to speak up, talk back, and bring truth to power. So again, to WCCW and to all the other organizations, I want to thank you for doing this. And I want to thank you for moving this forward. And we have to remember that our resolution was written into law by President Obama, and that U.S. Ambassador to Japan, Carolyn Kennedy, had spoken to Abe, and also Hillary, as Secretary of State, did mention very clearly and very strongly that comfort woman is a euphemism What it is it was sexual slavery, nothing less. So we must continue this fight on behalf of the 200,000 to 300,000 women who lost their lives, who lost their dignity, to fight for their regaining of their dignity. And as Sister Lee had said, if you cannot apologize to me, then give me back my youth. And in that spirit, we must continue this fight together. Thank you so much.
So we'd like to recognize Congressman Ed Royce for his contribution to the House Resolution 121. In special recognition of the Honorable Ed Royce, a member of the U.S. House of Representatives and Chairman of Foreign Affairs Committee, for your commitment to the advancement of women's rights through contribution to the Comfort Women Resolution of the U.S. House of Representatives of 2007 on the occasion of the 10th anniversary of House Resolution 121 ceremony. The Washington Coalition for Comfort Women Issues, July 27, 2007. Thank you. In special recognition of the Honorable Mike Honda, we come up, a member of the U.S. House of Representatives from 2001 to 2007. For your commitment to the advancement of women's rights through contribution to the Comfort Women Resolution of the U.S. House of Representatives of 2007 on the occasion of the 10th anniversary of House Resolution 121 ceremony. The Washington Coalition for Comfort Women Issues, July 27, 2007. A round of applause, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the honor, and it is an honor. I just wanted to say I actually am an independent scholar, runs a small think tank that studies Asian history and Japanese war crimes. And I was very honored when Mr. Honda asked me to help with the resolution. And so there's a few things I'd like you to know about and understand. And when Mr. Honda said that we need to keep fighting, it's true, because the Japanese government and the Japanese right wing, which supports this current government, has unleashed a barrage of vitriol and fake history and fake news, and have been paying a number of white faces to distribute bad news. But one of the things, going back to the resolution, when you say that you want an unambiguous apology, what you really want is an unequivocal apology. What you need to know, and God is in the details, is that the Japanese government, the executive of the Japanese government, is the cabinet and not the prime minister. So if the cabinet does not approve legislation or a statement or a speech or a policy, it is not really policy. So there has been no apology, and there have been many, many apologies, the Japanese will point out, to the Comfort Women for the war. For the war, there's only been 4 cabinet-approved apologies. For the Comfort Women, none. In fact, there was a cabinet decision, this is what they call cabinet-approved, for a statement saying that the Kono statement, which is the first apology to the Comfort Women, was not a cabinet decision. In other words, saying it is unofficial, not legal, and not right. And so that was a very destructive cabinet decision. And then when Mr. Abe, Prime Minister Abe, spoke in Congress, when he spoke at Hiroshima, when he spoke at Pearl Harbor, and his unknown apology statement to Park Geun-hye, none of these, and I mean none of these, were cabinet approved. So in other words, they were his opinion, they were unofficial, they were unlegal. And so what you need to work for is for the Japanese cabinet to approve a statement of apology. And that has not happened. And what will take probably a new government, because there has just been incredible lobbying, formal and informal, from the government, from organizations, to Japanese companies who know that if anyone supports the comfort women, they will threaten to withdraw money, they will threaten to withdraw support, and they will actually go ahead and do that. That's very important for you to know, and you need to be always vigilant on how the Japanese have been combating. Like, I had put together a team of 17 scholars from around the world, experts on history, linguistics, politics on Japan, to help Mr. Honda. Many of them get death threats now. Whenever you get something published, you get a barrage of hate mail, death, and horrible things. There's one professor who has to have the FBI monitor her email of what the Japanese right wing is doing. But you need to be forever vigilant and always asking questions. And they are using a lot of fake analysis and fake history to overturn the ideas and to convince people who are not knowledgeable about Asia. So keep fighting, and remember, it is for all the women, girls, and there were boys who were made into comfort women, for the Australian nurses, for the Dutch mothers, for the Tamil workers on the Burma Road, the Filipino girls. There was a horrific system. Keep fighting.
Thank you, Mindy, for sharing your words.